If you have ever spent more than 3 seconds trying to decide if Canva is software or subscriptions, this video is for you. In our author community, we got this question. How do I efficiently track expenses? I know every year I wind up emailing my accountant asking which category does this expense go under, so a discussion of what categories to track and what goes in each might be useful. Now, whenever you're trying to decide what to track, you need to figure out why you're tracking it in the first place. If you're trying to get relevant numbers to run your author business, that's going to be way different if you just need things for tax time. This video is specifically going to be about how to track things for tax purposes so that you can spend your time doing better things. I'm going to talk about why it matters where you track them. I'm going to show you the specific form where these end up so that you have an idea of what's going on. And then I'll show you where to go if you still have questions so that you can stop emailing your CPA with those questions since he's probably not responding to you anyway. So why does this matter? Because if you have an expense that's deductible, if you call it supplies or material, it's just as deductible or not deductible either way. But it does matter to an extent because the IRS is watching for consistency and they're comparing your tax return to the prior year and to other metrics. So if your supplies expense, let's say, goes from $5,000 one year to $25,000 the next year, and your income has stayed roughly the same, they probably are going to be asking you some questions. Your CPA should at least be asking questions as to why things change so much. And if the only reason it changed is because you just started categorizing something differently, then you're going to be getting attention from the IRS that you really don't need to have. Now let me show you where all this stuff ends up. This is Schedule C. This is where your business income and expenses are going to go if you're not an S Corp or a partnership or a C Corp. This gets attached to your personal tax return. And I'm showing you this form because the expenses here are going to apply for the most part, whether or not you're an S Corp or a C Corp or a partnership. It's typically the same category. So this is the easiest way to show this. So if you come down here to the expense section, here's the trick. It's really helpful if you're tracking your expenses in the same categories that they end up on your tax return. Again, this is specifically for tax purposes. You should have other expenses other than these or other categories if you're tracking things for other reasons. But in general, this is a good place to start if you're just not sure. So I'm going to run down the list here. I'm not going to cover every single expense because that would be really boring, but I'm going to go over the highlights. So some of this stuff is self-explanatory. Advertising, your ad spend. So if you're paying for Facebook ads or Meta ads or social media ads or whatever the case is, those ad costs are going to go here. I'm also probably going to include in that number, if you're paying somebody to manage your ads for you, I'm probably also putting those in that same line item. Car and truck expenses are going to be really specific. So I actually wouldn't be tracking specific vehicle expenses if you are a self-employed author. The reason is we're going to be taking your mileage deduction instead because you probably aren't using your vehicle more than 50% in business anyway. And so if that's the case, then just track your vehicle mileage for business purposes, but don't worry about tracking like the specific line by line vehicle expenses like oil and gas and stuff like that, because it's all going to be included in your mileage. Commissions and fees. Let's say you're paying an agent or something else or somebody else who has commissions. You might call that commissions there. Contract labor. So this would include your editor. This would include your cover designer. This would include your administrative assistant or those types of things where you have a person who's helping you with something. Now, you can also break those out. And for your author business, I actually recommend that you do break those out into the specific functions. I would have an editing expense. I would have a cover design expense. I would do it that way because you want to track those costs over time aside from taxes. And I'll show you where those are going to end up on your tax return in just a second. Ignore depletion, ignore depreciation. That's for your accountant to worry about. You're not going to have employee benefit programs, most likely. You may have insurance, like if you do liability insurance or things like that, you can track that all in one line item. You're not going to track your health insurance here. That's a totally separate deduction. If you have loans or credit cards or any kind of debt that you're paying interest on, you can track that as a separate line item. Just interest expense is fine like that. Legal and professional services. So this would be like your accounting fees. If you pay an attorney, if you pay for anything with like copyrights or anything along those lines, you can put those in that category there. Office expenses can be really ambiguous. So office expenses would be anything that you're paying for your office. Don't confuse this with your home office deduction. So your home internet, your real estate taxes, your utilities, things like that, that's all going to go under home office. There's a whole separate video on home office deductions. But things that like you're putting in your office furniture, well, not office furniture, but like your office supplies, things like that might go in office. Pension and profit sharing, you're probably not doing, don't worry about that. Rent or lease, again, you most likely won't have this unless I can't think of what kind of equipment you might rent as as an author, you could put like booth fees. If you do in-person events, maybe you would have that as a rent expense, but most likely you won't have like office rent or anything like that. Repairs and maintenance, probably not something that you're going to have unless if you just have like a really dope computer and you just need to get it repaired instead of replaced, then maybe you have repairs and maintenance. Supplies is the other area that gets confusing. So a lot of times it's like, is this a supply? Is it an office expense? Just be consistent. So I'm going to put into supplies anything that I'm buying for use in the business. So if I go to a conference and I have to buy business cards, I'm calling that supplies. If I have to buy materials to hand out, I'm calling that supplies. If I have to buy sticky notes for my desk, I'm calling that supplies. Just those usable things that you're consuming in your business would go into supplies. Taxes and licenses. This is specifically not going to be like you paying your income taxes. This would be things like Secretary of State fees and other things like that. Your income taxes are not deductible for taxes. Like you can't deduct your taxes on your taxes. Your accountant should be able to differentiate those, but if you are showing your payment of income taxes, like in your QuickBooks, just make sure that that's separated out so that your accountant can easily find it. Travel and meals, we have a whole other video on that kind of thing. So travel would be anything like your airfare, your hotel lodging, your parking, your Uber, anything that's travel, but only if it's actually business related travel, not personal travel that you did business stuff on, but travel that was for the purpose of business. And that's a whole separate video that we'll go into in another one. Deductible meals would be the meals you had to pay for while you're traveling or with a colleague or client. That is only if the purpose of the meal was for business purposes. Again, there's very specific rules on what's deductible as meals. A lot of people get this wrong. If you're not sure, just put your business meals in that category and then have a conversation with your accountant about what in there actually is deductible. Utilities, again, you most likely won't have utilities unless for some reason you just have a like totally separate writing office or something. So we won't have to worry about that. Wages, you may or may not have that if you have employees. I'm assuming you don't if you're doing a Schedule C, but if you have actual employees, not contractors that you give a 1099 to, but employees that you have a W-2 that you're giving to, that's going to go in wages. And then other expense is everything else. So if you go down to the second page here, there's a chance to list out those things. So that might be your publishing costs, your editing expenses, your cover designer, your printing costs, your fulfillment fees, all those like very author specific things that don't have a line item here will go into other. So if you're just not sure what expenses to start tracking or how to track them, this is a really good place to start because these are the items that your accountant's going to be looking for. And these are the things that you'll be looking for if you're preparing your own taxes on where they go on your tax return. So what if you still have questions? One of the most common things I hear from people is that they're not getting enough communication from their CPA. So we created Author Unlimited. It's a community specifically for authors where you can get those questions answered. You can ask your tax, your bookkeeping, your accounting, your author questions, your business questions. We're going to have monthly Q&As. We're going to have office hours. We're going to have a Profit First rollout that's coming up soon. We also have Notion templates and systems and automations in there that you can download and upload directly to your systems. So if you want to grow your author business and you don't want to do it alone, check that out in the description. There should be a link there to get you there. If you have questions about the community, reach out to me, put a comment, and I really, really hope that I see you in there.